Welcome to the Bill Levinson Experience, a motivational podcast relating to the insurance brokerage industry and business in general. And now, here's Bill Levinson.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Here we are back again, February 20th on a Friday afternoon. I appreciate you all taking the time and listening to the two of us for the next 30 to 40 minutes here. So the goal is you walk away with some sales ideas, some strategies, maybe some motivation, right? So write these things down, use your notes app, whatever it is. If you have any questions about anything that you're going to hear the next 30, 40 minutes, please don't hesitate to call or email me directly, and we'll make sure that you have all your questions answered and you're up and running. So fast forward, here we are, episode 65, and our featured presenter is Michael Wurth from SCA joining us. So this is going to be very, very exciting for all of our agents, advisors out there, or even if it's a friend of mine from my networking groups or whatever around the country, and you have interest, of course, call in, let us know. We'll get you set up and put you in the right direction. But what we're speaking about today is a very niche part of our industry, and it's all about, premium finance done the right way. Okay, so what I found out, right, is we have this partnership with AmeriLife that we rolled out October of last year. And, we've done some premium finance business in the past with a couple of third-party companies, and things worked out, fine. But what I found out late 2025, right, from our keynote speaker at this year's expo, Michael Wurth, is there's another third-party premium finance company based out of California that does everything right. Not only do they do it right, but they're actually compliant, right, with I think 4 or 5 different carriers where they have marketing brochures with carrier logos. They've been doing this for over 25, in fact, almost 30 years now. They have a stellar reputation. They handle everything for you and your client and the case from A to Z, and even after the policy's in force. So with servicing and annual reviews. So I've never seen anything as robust as this platform. And Michael was right, Michael Wurth, right? And I'll just say it on record because he's the one that told me, Bill, you got to speak to these guys. They're amazing. We had a webinar with this group also about a month ago now, and I asked Michael Wurth, who's joining us today, I said, hey, we would love to have you on our podcast because I know agents are going to walk away with nuggets, right? And you all, a guy, a girl that could be perfect for this. And one case, and the average size premiums and commissions are literally could start at 100,000 over $1 million. So this could change your year. It could change your career path, literally. So anyway, I don't want to steal any of Michael's thunder, but without further ado, Michael, I just want to say thank you for taking the time and spending it with us today during this next 40 minutes or so.
Thank you so much, Bill. That honestly may be the best introduction I've ever heard of what we do. I don't know if there's anything I can add to it.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Mike. All right, so good stuff. So here's what I'm going to do real fast. I just want to pull out some bullets here as far as SCA is concerned, and then I want Michael to jump in and give us a little background on how he got started, right, on a personal level, and then how he wound up at SCA for the last 5 years. So, but first, I just want to tee this up. So think about this for a second. When we talk about Succession Capital, right, over $60 billion of life insurance placed. And by the way, I'm sure that number is even higher now. Over $6 billion of premium financed over the last 30 years. And again, and I'm sure that's conservative. So without further ado, again, I'm going to have Michael jump in here. If you can just take us back to day one, Mike, and how it began for you growing up and how you wound up in this industry.
Oh, thanks. All right. Well, I really appreciate the introduction. It was fantastic. I am really happy to be here, Bill. I had a great time on the webinar we did about a month ago that you mentioned. And I really am excited for the opportunity to potentially partner with your firm and the agents that you work with. So I am originally from Southern California, but my path to this industry, whenever I talk to people that are like, hey, how did you get here? What can I do? And I always say, I don't think my path is the one you want to try and imitate. It was very roundabout. I basically started my dream, my whole goal in life was to play professional hockey. I applied and was a walk-on at Boston University. I did not make the team. So I transferred to USC and I changed my whole outlook on life. I said, I got to do something and take my life seriously. Sports are not it anymore for me. And so I did my undergrad in Chinese and international finance. My first job out of college was with Apple in their Beijing office, their iPhone sales finance team, where I was there for 5 years. I was the only non-Chinese person in their office of 250 people. Learned a ton, had a great time, but eventually realized that if I wanted to grow in that role in that company, I was going to have to either go back to California or Shanghai, which I was not quite ready for. So I decided to go to Spain to get my MBA, which as one naturally does from China, and also with the hopes of finding a wife, which on both accounts I was successful. I did my MBA there and got married in 2019 to a Spanish wife. Her name's Maria. We've been very blessed with 4 kids in our 6 years of marriage, or not even 6 yet, actually just past 6 years of marriage. And God willing, we'll have as many as he'll allow and as my wife wants. But how right after my MBA, I got into the private equity space. I started what's called a search fund, where basically, as an investor, we go out and find capital to deploy, acquire usually a small, medium-sized business, become the CEO, and your investors own the majority of the business, but you have the ability to earn into a lot of that stake in that company. Unfortunately, right after I did that, Bill, came COVID, and things were fine, but there was a lot of uncertainty. We had just had a child, and we just bought a house. So we decided to pray about it, see what I should do next. And quite honestly, within a week, a headhunter reached out to me working on behalf of Succession Capital, and asked if I'd be interested in this role. And that is how I ended up here. So again, I wouldn't recommend this path to anyone, Bill. It's a very roundabout way to get here.
Yeah, no. But you know what's interesting is, we obviously had 65 episodes on this podcast over the last, 9 years now. And when you speak to others, right, professionals in our industry, you always hear, these crazy stories. It's never like, right out of high school or middle school, I want to be a professional in the insurance industry. You never hear that story. It's always a roundabout way. And yours falls
That's
right
true.
in line with that. Yeah. But I love it. And I speak about this a lot. I remember someone told me when I first got involved in the industry when I was about 22, they said, it'll be the worst nightmare ever or the best kept secret and a dream come true. It's what you make of it. And that's exactly what happened for me, and obviously for you too. But that's a great story, especially with that background working for Apple. I mean, that's just insane. What an experience that must have been, right?
No, it was incredible. I mean, I really learned a whole lot about, culture, business, international, negotiations, things like this that really I've carried with me since then. But, joining this firm where, as you mentioned, we've been around almost 30 years, and working with people like Julian Movsesian, our founder, and Michael Rothman, our principal, and quite frankly, all of the advisors that we partner with, I have been so blessed just to learn from the best of the best. And I mean, that's why I came into this business a little over 5 years ago, not even knowing what a cash value is, and now being able to present to the wealthiest families in the country solutions to what I would say is the biggest bill that their family is ever going to face, right? The biggest uncertainty that their family is probably going to face in terms of generational wealth and passing that wealth down. And that was only possible because I've been taught by the best, I've been mentored by the best, and I've just been able to watch and learn from all of these people. And I have a lot to learn, and as we all do. But it's a very exciting time to be in this industry. And every morning I wake up and I'm just excited to get out of bed and come to work. So that's what I'm most proud of currently.
Wow, that's awesome, and that also says a lot about who you are, right, as an individual. I mean, going from Apple and then to SCA and learning from the ground up, in 5 years is not a long time to be in this business, and especially at your level with a company like SCA. So that says the world about you, and you really took it all in. Yep, you took it all in and ran with it. Because especially on your side of the industry, understanding cash accumulation and loans and withdrawals and caps and IUL and it takes years and years and years. So again, I give you full credit on that. Very, very respectful. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Of course. Let's just back up for a second too. If you can share, and I saw this video a while ago on YouTube, but how Julian, the founder, even came up with this idea, and then how he brought it to the next level. Can you talk about that for a second?
Absolutely. I actually heard Julian tell this story again the other day because we were meeting with a new partner. So I love this story. I think it really speaks to Julian as a person, but and just how he's worked so hard and he's had some opportunities come his way, but then he's a rare breed that takes them and runs with them and just multiplies them and also gives back to everyone around him too, right? So this particular story was back in 1995. He was kind of a young up-and-comer in the Beverly Hills office for a life insurance agency there. And he got introduced into this very wealthy, well-known family in the Beverly Hills community. And the mom of the family, the father had passed away, but the mom of the family was in her early 70s, and they needed a $40 million death benefit on her for estate tax purposes. And so Julian went in, presented to the family, and I believe the check was in the arena of $780,000 to $800,000. We'll call it $800,000. $800,000 a year. And the trustee, who was the son-in-law, was about ready to go. Julian went into the last meeting and there to go and sign the documents. And the trustee, the son-in-law, said, "Listen, Julian, I know this is a good policy. I know this is a good carrier, but I'm really struggling with the fact that $800,000 a year I'm going to have to allocate, really pre-tax, that's about $1.5 million a year of our family income to a life insurance policy. And that means over the next 20 years, if mom lives 20 years, that's $30 million out of our pocket to get 40. That is not an extremely high internal rate of return. If I'm in the real estate business, if I go buy a building that's worth $40 million, I don't pay $40 million for it. I might put 10, 20% down and get a bank to loan the rest. So find me a bank, Julian, that will loan me the premiums for this policy." And Julian, at first it's like, no, wait, mom's not going to live 20 years. All the things you learn or he learned in career school, which they didn't like that. And by the way, mom lived, I think, almost to 100. So he went out and he tried to find a bank that would do this. And that's how this whole thing started. That was the first case. He found a bank. And, what I think is really, what I love about that story, Bill, is that maybe 99% of people, maybe I'm wrong on that, but 99% of people in that situation would have found that one and moved on. But Julian found that, realized this could be something extremely big and industry changing. And that's quite literally the idea that has gotten me to where I am today in this whole company and really changed the industry as a whole.
Wow, that's awesome. And if you haven't seen this video, you got to look it up on YouTube. The way he explains it is great. And you're right. I would say most people are not going to take it a step further. They're just going to take the typical, oh, no, we don't offer that. This is the way it's been done for the last 100 years, and that's it. But the bottom line is, the way you need to look at this as an agent and explain to your clients, right, and prospects is, you're purchasing a new home, right? Most people don't just go pay cash. They take out a mortgage, try to get the best rate, and it's a very similar concept. So he ran with that idea, and look where they are today. So I love it. I love it. It makes complete sense. So then,
the other piece of that. Just real quick to add on. I mean, what Julian has always preached from day one is the power of choice. Like, if you want to go pay the $800,000 a premium a year, great. There's nothing wrong with this. But if you want to pay, let's call it $70,000 in year one and invest that $730 into real estate or private equity, then here's another alternative. Build that retained capital up, and you're going to have not only better IRRs on the life insurance potentially, but you're also going to have this massive growth of a side account, essentially, of your invested assets alongside it. And that way, everyone kind of wins.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's such a great story, makes complete sense. And obviously, you are the innovators, in this part of the industry, right? You proved the concept. You made it through the 09, banking crisis, right? Where some of these other third-party, quote unquote premium finance companies, they came, right, and now they're gone, right? They didn't make it through, and you guys have proven the concept year after year, and here we are, almost 30 years later, and not only still standing strong, but growing year after year. So they're doing something right, and that's the main reason why I wanted Michael on today, and we wanted to partner with SCA. Okay, we think it's that important because you hear about all these nightmare stories and lawsuits and not doing things the right way, and in premium financing in the gray area, which is something you do not want to do. Okay, in fact, when you now log into our website, you're going to see one third-party company, which is SCA, when it comes to premium finance, right? And again, we did that for a reason, right? And that's why we also wanted to have Michael on the podcast today. So, all right, let's talk about, obviously, everyone's here to learn something new, right? We have agents, advisors on, we have CPAs that are licensed, we have estate planning attorneys that are licensed as well. And, you're thinking to yourself, I know a guy, I know a girl, I know a business owner, right, where this could work great. So let's shift gears for a second, Michael, and just, let's talk about, who is a good candidate, right? What should these agents and advisors look for, and then let's shift over to marketing, right? And what can they do to kind of plant the seed and create some sizzle around the concept?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, premium financing, the way that we think about it is that it's a way to buy life insurance. It's not a reason to buy it. So we always like to start with what is the need. And if we work together on a case, you'll see this over and over again. We are going to hammer home the point before we get to any numbers that this is the problem we're trying to solve. Do you agree this is the problem? And if so, here are the 4 or 5 solutions that are possible. And here's why we think the one we are presenting is the most efficient to solve this. Like that, it has to start there. So first, it has to be a client that has a need, a real need, whether that's buy, sell, P-man, estate planning, estate equalization, a whole host of reasons. We do need to have a very strong need for that insurance. The second is they have to be able to afford the premiums. And what I mean by that is premium financing is not for somebody who would love to have a $50 million death benefit, but there's no way they could ever afford those premiums. Because as I said, premium financing is a tool. It is not a reason to buy life insurance. So we prefer to sell life insurance to clients who could afford the premiums, but prefer to use a more efficient way, which will likely turn out to be the most efficient way, using financing. This is very different from what a lot of groups do, is essentially say, here's free life insurance. We don't do that. We show the clients the paying cash and the financing, and we explain that this is what it costs, and it could cost as much as this on the paying cash, but we're going to finance it. So we need clients that have the net worth, have the cash flow, and maybe they have the liquidity, or they don't, insofar as like it could be tied up in assets, but they're going to have to pledge collateral, Bill. So there has to be some way to get the liquidity to pledge collateral and pay interest. That is a non-negotiable for the way that we do financing. And I think, quite honestly, what has kept us safe in doing it for the past almost 30 years is we don't pitch free insurance. We don't pitch the arbitrage, millions and millions of income with nothing out of pocket. We do it the right way, and we service it for a very long time. So typically we're looking for clients with a minimum net worth of 15 to 20 million. I know we're trying to get down to brass tacks here. Hopefully that answers that question. But ultimately, there has to be a need for the life insurance, regardless of their net worth. So that's the most important thing. Any questions on that, Bill? I mean, you probably you can imagine these aren't clients that necessarily every agent has 50 of them right off the shelf, right? There's going to be some effort and time putting into building those relationships and finding them. I think that's also something that we can help with when it comes to marketing. We have an estate planning attorney on staff. She is phenomenal. Her name is Kristen Williams. Maybe the best I've ever come across in terms of her ability to come up with creative ideas and solutions for the clients, but then maybe most importantly, distill those down into a simple explanation that a client can understand. And then on the back end, work with those attorneys to put the complex down on paper and get it all solved, right? She's unbelievable. She has over 20 years of experience in the life insurance industry specifically, alongside being a JD LLM in tax planning as well. So what we like to do is get her in front of as many groups as possible for agents. We do webinars all the time. Advisors come to us and say, I have 2 or 3 estate planning attorneys, but I've never gotten any referrals from them. Well, why don't we set up a webinar or an in-person meeting with them and Kristen and let her kind of share how life insurance fits in with their other excellent planning that they're doing. And that has seemed to pay off in a lot of different ways, pay a lot of dividends for the advisors, for us, everyone involved. And then I would say, don't be afraid to ask the next question. The reality is, the estate tax will be the biggest expense this family will ever incur. Don't be afraid to ask them about that. Do you understand that this is going to be the biggest bill? How are your kids going to pay it? And don't let them give the answer, well, I'm worth $400 million. I'm worth $100 million. They'll have plenty of money. Okay, but wait, let's try and dig a little bit, make them uncomfortable. Because if they have $100 million in real estate, do they know that the government's not going to accept real estate as a payment for their estate tax? That they're going to have to sell that. They're going to have 9 months to sell what could amount to 40% of their real estate. That's not going to be a simple thing to get through. And this is all keeping in mind right after mom and or dad have just passed away. It's what we are presenting ultimately is liquidity insurance. It's not life insurance. And I think in estate planning, what gets often overlooked is how valuable liquidity is in that 9-month period of getting that estate tax paid. It's not that easy to come up with liquidity. And Bill, yeah. I'm sure you saw in the news, the Seahawks went up for sale, right?
Yeah.
and I don't know if you remember just a couple of years ago when the Celtics won the championship right after they were put up for sale as well. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. Yep. Sell at the high.
Well, yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And what's interesting is in their press release, they even said the family is selling the Celtics at the time for estate and family planning considerations.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that they sold that team for $6 billion, I think it was. What they realized is mom and dad who owned it were in their 80s. If they were to wait until they died, the IRS comes in, values the team at $6 billion. They're going to have to come up with what, $2.5 billion in estate taxes. How are they going to do that from a basketball team? They're going to have to fire sell the team, and everybody knows they're fire selling it at that point. So their estate tax $2.5 billion, but they end up selling it for $4.5. So they're really only netting $2 billion, right? And this is the issue. It doesn't matter. Like, people think this is maybe a 40 million, 50 million net worth issue, but this is a massive issue for clients with billions of dollars as well.
That's right. That's where the tax-free death benefit could be so rewarding, right? For beneficiaries, right? For a business partner, for whatever it is. There's so many opportunities there and ideas around exactly what you just said, Michael. I mean, that's spot on.
Yeah, it's multitude of things, right? You can do good planning. You can move assets into an irrevocable trust, make them estate tax free. But there's a trade-off. You're also going to have to give up control. You don't get that income anymore. And a lot of clients, in their 40s, 50s, they're not ready to do that. So one workaround is get a nice life insurance policy inside of an irrevocable trust. You can gift the interest or loan the interest and have the bank pay the premiums. And that is using up significantly less exemption and maintaining control of all your other assets in the meantime. So that's ultimately what we do. And I think that really resonates with high net worth clients in this space. And it's now is an exciting time to be doing it as we're looking, as you've heard, whatever the number is, 70 to 100 trillion of assets being transferred in the next 20 to 30 years.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, great ideas. And now I think we have your ears up and eyes open. So now you have some great bullets, right? And think about this for a second too. And correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but we're talking about a family example here, right? A few various high net worth families, also business owners, right? The concept works great. Right, charitable solutions, right, for high net worth individuals, right? There's so many different angles leading to the same place. But if I were an agent in the field right now, I would be jotting down, some people or business owners, right, or a combination of both that you can speak to about this concept. And here's what I love about it, right? You don't have to know everything. You just know enough to be dangerous, right? Spread the message out on your social media and some of your marketing. Team up with, I mentioned it earlier, CPAs, estate planning attorneys, right? You can work something out with them. But as soon as you have the guy or girl, right, you think fits in this criteria, this mold, so to speak, just let us know, right? And then Michael and his team will take it from there. And here's what I love too, and we all know, right? You have that monster case, and your prospect or your client or could be a family member, right? They say, "Oh, Bill, this sounds great. I love everything I'm seeing, but I just want to run it by my attorney or my CPA." Okay, and then we all know there's a 50-50 chance that they're going to come back to you and say, "Oh, you know what? I'm not interested anymore," or, "Oh yeah, they referred me to an advisor that handles these types of policies," and you wind up losing the sale because of a CPA or estate planning attorney where their cousin is an agent, right? And who knows what's going on behind the scenes. So what I love about this team, as soon as you have the guy or girl, Michael and his team, take over, they do all of this in-house with their own in-house lawyer, so you don't have to worry about anything like that ever happening again. Am I right, Michael? I mean, you guys cover all the bases.
Absolutely. I think you really hit the nail on the head. The one thing I will just caveat that with is our attorney is for advisor purposes only. So she does not draft documents, but she does work with the client's attorney to understand the concept and put it in the best light of how to get it done. Right. So we're not drafting any documents. She doesn't bill hourly. She's kind of, looked at as like a resource to the client and their attorneys. But I think you hit the nail on the head with regards to how the advisors and the agents out there can work with us is don't try to be something you're not. I think this is where we've excelled is if you ask me, Bill, to talk about defined benefit plans, I will say this is not what we do. We are extremely niche. We've gone down this really deep into one specific area, and that is advanced life insurance planning for ultra high net worth clients. And so if the earlier you do your fact finding, learn about the client, try and get a sense of what they need, but don't go in guns blazing saying, hey, I got to tell you about life insurance premium financing. That will not work. The earlier you can get us involved and work on a strategy together, the better. And we go in together with the client and show him or her what are the best opportunities or solutions that we can come up with. We are, as Bill said, as involved as you want us to be on these cases. We're happy to take the lead. We're happy to work right alongside you. Whatever is best for you and for the client, and quite frankly, whatever gives the case the highest probability of a positive outcome.
That's right. That's right. And I just want the audience to know too. So when they have a case, right, and everything looks good, everything's lining up, and they turn this consumer, this prospect, over to you and your team. Can you just talk about for a second as far as all the bases covered, right, when it comes to premium finance? So on the front end, right, with case design, working with the agent and or client, and then on the underwriting side, at the carrier level, and then even after the policy is in force 5 years down the road when the insured has some questions on how the policy is behaving and questions about premiums or whatever it is. I think that's an important part of this.
Yeah, I really appreciate you asking this question because I hadn't had a chance to touch on it. But first, there's the whole upfront process. Obviously, we work together. We put together a design. We try and understand the client's problem. And then once we agree on the solution we're going to present, we present it together. If the client decides to move forward, again, we're as involved or uninvolved as you want us to be on the medical underwriting. And then, of course, if they do the financing, we will help with the loan underwriting and manage that process as well. However, this is where a lot of agents think that, okay, great, we've just finished our first big life insurance premium financing case. And I will tell you, that is only the beginning. Where what I think really separates us, and Julian has preached this from day one, is service. We have about half of our headcount in our firm is dedicated to servicing this book of business, this in-force book of business. And what does that mean? That means requesting in-force illustrations, meeting with the client at least once a year, refinancing, making sure that the client doesn't need any additional insurance or their circumstances have changed or they need less death benefit. There's a whole host of things that we do on the back end that I will say, Bill, is the reason we are endorsed by 4 of the major life insurance companies in the country. This is why they've printed these brochures with our logo next to theirs for their high net worth clients. It's because they know when we work on a financing case, that case is going to stay on the books for a long time. And one plug on the servicing aspect of our business, one last plug, if you'll allow me. And I think, Bill, you alluded to this earlier, but when when interest rates, back in 2007, 2008, the financial crisis, when that happened, one of the biggest banks in the country, AI Credit, collapsed. We had been working with them as well. We were the only premium financing group in the country that was able to refinance 100% of our loans. And the reason for that is the relationships that Julian built on our platform, the size of our portfolio, as Bill said earlier, a $6 billion loan portfolio. We are going to get the best loan rates. We are going to get excellent service from these lenders, which is required on these cases. This is not a set it and forget it model. This requires a lot of work on the back end. And I think that's truly where we separate ourselves from the rest. Anyone can sell, Julian says this all the time, anyone can sell life insurance premium financing when interest rates are at 2% and policies show crediting at 6%. But those, you really quickly separate the wheat from the chaff when interest rates jump up like they did over the last 2 or 3 years. And we were able to refinance, keep all these loans on the books. And in fact, we were actually able to grow our business. And that was something that, to be quite frank, shocked me, having only been here for 3 years at that point. But it really is a testament to the way that we do this business.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. So you talk about, peace of mind, right? You're the agent out in the trenches, right? It's your relationship. It's your brother-in-law, right? Sister-in-law, whatever the case is. And do you think you would have peace of mind, right? Turning the consumer over, right? And working together with SCA to get things, signed, sealed, delivered, and then servicing 3 years later, right? Where obviously you could be involved every step of the way, but just knowing that they're going to handle that consumer, right? When they call in, they get a call back. When they send an email, there's an email back. And it's not just, you're hearing the two of us speak about it, right, for the last 20, 30 minutes, which is great, right? You know me forever, and you just met Michael, and you think he's great, he sounds great, okay. But when you think about a carrier, right, when you think about 4 carriers, right, A-rated or better, companies that have been around, 80, 100, 120 years, having their logo, their stamp of approval on SCA's marketing material, that's priceless. I've never seen that before, right? That shows me and tells me everything I need to know as an IMO, right? When I know the program is vetted, right? It went through a compliance department and 12 lawyers looked at it from each company, minimum, whatever it is. But when you think about Pac Life, right, Nationwide, Penn Mutual, Hancock, right, saying, you know what, I'll give the green light on this. Okay, that's huge. So, and by the way, we have those brochures that we can send out. And in fact, you let us know, and like I mentioned, we have a section on our website once you log in where we have most of this material. But I don't know, that to me was the ultimate, game changer. And I think you'll love it too, all the agents listening. Anything on that, Michael? Did I hit the 4 carriers right? That's
you
the top
did.
4
you
right
nailed
now?
it. Yeah, I will say, Bill, that obviously, these are our preferred carrier partners. But if advisors have a strong preference for a specific carrier, we're happy to work with them, assuming they are top rated, right? The lenders look very closely at the financials of the carriers that we work with. And to be quite frank, we want to avoid any big issues in the next 20, 30 years on these carriers as well. So we do our due diligence on the carriers, as do the lenders, but we're open to working with other lenders as well.
Absolutely.
Or other carriers,
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry.
Yep. No, that's great. And I'm sure A-rated or better, and there's a few other rating companies they look at. So yeah, that's an important part of the equation. Also, I want the agents to know, this isn't, you don't just send over and vet your prospect and then, think, oh yeah, I'm going to get a 2% referral fee, and they're making all the commissions. No, you as the agent still get the bulk of the street level commission. So I love that part. Okay. It's not like you're taking a huge haircut. Okay, so just keep that in mind as well. And what I would do, and I mentioned it earlier, is jot down some names, right? Not just of high net worth, family members, relatives, prospects, business owners, but think about who you can network with, right? These CPAs, financial institutions, right? One of our biggest agencies is related to a banker out of Texas. In fact, they'll be at our expo in April. But that relationship has changed his life. Okay, now the bank is thinking he's a superhero. So anything that you can think of, just jot it down and tee up this conversation, and then boom, as soon as they're interested, let us know, and Michael and his team will take it from there. But there's a lot of, and again, when one or two can change your life, your year, your path. Okay, and that's the way these work. What's the average size premium, would you say, Michael, of the cases that you see come in? Just rough range?
Oh, I would say probably average around $1 million of premium.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So there you have it.
Yep.
Okay. That's a game changer. So this is a big deal. All right, let's shift gears. By the way, we're almost done here. We have about 5 minutes left. But if we can, if you don't mind, Michael, if you could maybe share some good case studies. Maybe if it's an agent success story, or maybe even a client success story. We won't mention any names, but if you can share any details, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I can share. I think ultimately the way we look at our business, Bill, and this is really important for everyone listening, is we are an advisor to advisors, right? And if we do our job right, everyone wins, including the advisor, including the clients. And that's how we gauge our level of success. So I'll share one story, or won't name names, but an advisor that has become a very, very close friend of mine. They're working in the space for many, many, many years, and had been a very good producer. But most of their business was, I guess what we might call, or Julian might call, bread and butter cases. Typical, maybe $50,000 premium here, $100,000 premium there. But once I met with this advisor, we became very good friends, and I just shared with him some of the ideas. He really took hold of this and got very excited, got Kristen in front of centers of influence, presented these ideas. We basically formed a partnership on all these cases. And I will tell you, he did one case. This was a year and a half ago. He did one case alone that was $4.5 million of target premium. And for him, you talked about this, Bill, changing your practice, changing your life. Like, that was unthinkable for him just a few years prior. And the reason I share that is because it was a huge case for him, a huge solution for the client. But this was an advisor that, if most people met, even I met 4 years ago, would have never thought that could be a case that is in his future. You know what I mean? That wasn't his clientele. So I want to encourage everyone to don't give up that hope. Let's work together. Let's find ways we can drum up this business. There are trillions of dollars that's going to be passed down in the most unlikely of places. Sometimes you think, like, our business is exploding with farmers, right? This massive land wealth, no liquidity. And they're quite frankly being faced with this dilemma of, do I sell my farm to Bill Gates or the Chinese or some massive conglomerate, or do I find a solution for my kids so they can continue this family legacy? And that second option is not easy without life insurance. And that's really where, to talk about a solution that we've put in place for clients, this has been a huge one. Liquidity insurance for farming families. And then, I would say, look out, everybody. There's a ton of opportunities hiding underneath your nose of in-force cash surrender value. I can't tell you how many clients come to us. They bought a whole life policy from Northwestern Mutual 20 years ago as a bond alternative. Their net worth has grown substantially. They don't need this cash value in terms of for retirement income. It's actually contributing to their estate tax problem. This cash value can be a very valuable resource to use as collateral for a much larger life insurance policy on top of that using third-party financing. And we can share kind of those strategies and how they work. But ultimately, we're here to work with you and the clients that you have and work with you to find those clients. I can share more case studies, Bill, just very specific, like buy, sell, key man. But I don't know if that's too in depth or if I've kind of touched enough on some of the high level case studies. You tell me.
No. That's great. And one of the bullets I wanted you to jump into was how you handle in-house policy reviews, and you just touched on that. So, like Michael said, a large IUL, right? Cash accumulation policy, whole life, maybe an older UL. And obviously the net worth is there. Everything looks okay. And your team will dissect the policy and then come up with some alternative solutions. Am I right? That was one of the things I was going to touch on.
Absolutely. What I always say is, if you're not mining your own book of business, someone else will.
That's right.
And that is the lowest hanging fruit. A lot of these clients, they already trust you, or they trusted you at some point. But even further, don't dismiss the clients that you run across that say, "Oh no, I already have life insurance. I have 10 million of death benefit." Ask the next question. Do you mind if I review it for you, free of charge? Just, maybe that's an opportunity to really look at what they have. You can work with us. And one of the things that we do differently that a lot of carriers really value and respect is we're not looking to replace these policies for replacement's sake. Very rarely do we replace. There's occasional carriers just falling apart. This is a disaster. We need to get rid of this. But most of the time, it's, look, this was a good policy. Maybe they underfunded it, so we can fund a little more with the bank. But we can specifically use this cash value to leverage up, maybe even get double the death benefit for a very similar out-of-pocket, but instead of paying premiums, you're paying interest. And this can be really exciting to clients. We're not poo-pooing the work they've already done with their life insurance and saying, yeah, this was a mistake. We're saying, this is great. You've built this foundation. Let us enhance it. And I think that has really been transformative for our business as well over the past 2 or 3 years. And I think that's the lowest hanging fruit and the place you want to start as well.
Yep. I love that concept too. And think about, I know a lot of you are scratching your head saying, who do I know? Who could I reach out to? And I just had a few thoughts, as I'm listening here to Michael. But, like everyone knows, I'm into the whole car scene. It's one of my hobbies with the exotic cars, and we do these runs and these trips, and we meet once a month. Think about some of these guys and girls that own, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 vehicles, right? And they're business owners, right? Or they're part of a huge organization, right? Running the company for many years, making millions of dollars a year. Think about, everyone knows Kerry, my father, is into cigars, right? And he's the president of the cigar club at the country club where he lives. And everyone looks up to him, and they go once a week on Thursdays, right? That community itself, right? Think about the families, the business owners, the relationships that he's building, right? So any ideas, anything that you can think of where you can get around some of these people, right? Even seminars. Think of, how you can, you're sending out your e-blasts every week, right? About, IUL, long-term care, living benefits. This is a new hook. So there's so many ideas. We can help you with this. We can help you put together a great campaign around social media, around e-blasts, all the above. Okay, so let us know, and we can also get Michael involved. Right, we're all in this together. It becomes a win-win-win. But this is another tool in your toolbox, so to speak, and gives you a new story to talk about. Obviously, with the right person when it's a fit. Okay, which is most important. Okay, no, this is great. Any last words here, Michael, for the audience? Anything that you want to leave everyone with before we put a bow on this?
Yeah, the last thing is, look, everyone. Besides, first, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of share this message. I'm excited to work with you and your agents as well. But what I think the closing message I'll leave is the amount of competition for managing assets, selling a term policy, selling a small cash accumulation life insurance policy. The amount of competition there is astounding, right? If you can find a way to partner with someone like us or us and enter and get yourself into this ultra high net worth space, this is really a massive market. It's $1 trillion industry. There's trillions and trillions of dollars that are going to be funneled from one generation to the next over the next 20 to 30 years. And very few people are either capable of talking about it or willing to talk about it because it's an uncomfortable conversation. In other words, there's very few people competing in that space. And I think the opportunity is right now. It's the perfect time because there's so many people all of a sudden realizing that, wow, I didn't do this planning, and it's not too late. And we have the solutions for them. So I would encourage you all to get really excited about this and go out, talk to people about it, mention that you're partnering with Bill, with Succession Capital, and you have solutions to solve these problems that are really going to impact these clients, their families for generations. That's what I'll leave you with.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And again, and just so you need to jot down whatever notes, ideas, strategies you want to learn more, right? Again, our website, if you click on Premium Finance, we have the entire section dedicated to this part of the industry, the space. Michael, do you have a social media platform, maybe LinkedIn, do you use, just so if people want to follow you?
Absolutely. My LinkedIn, yeah, I do have LinkedIn. It's just Michael Wurth, Wurth, and that's it. That's pretty much the only platform that I have on professional social media.
That's perfect. That's good enough. And obviously reach out to any one of our marketers, right? We have 11 people now, 4 states, so we have you covered. And this is another great point. SCA is an AmeriLife affiliate partnership group, just like we are. So that should also give you some more peace of mind. So anyway, with that said, this was great. And if you picked up one idea, right? If you have one person, it, like I said 30 times already, it changes your life, your career, your year, and I think most important too, that one person or family member, right, or business owner. Once you come in and you're Superman or Superwoman with this great strategy, and Michael and his team puts together the whole case, and it gets sent over the finish line, they have friends, right? They have family members that they refer to you. And then the list just goes on from there, right? You talk about a game changer. I mean, this could be huge. I don't want to beat it to death, but I think you kind of get the point by now. We're here to help you. Reach out anytime. Make sure you're registered for the April 17th Expo, okay? You'll have 300 other agents, advisors, a great group to network with. We have 11 carriers. We'll also have brochures for the SCA platform as well to hand out. Any questions, we have Josh as our go-to when it comes to advanced case design. So we're here to help every step of the way. Have a wonderful rest of your February. I hope 26 is off to a great start. And again, email, phone call, social media, reach out any way that you're comfortable with. We're here to help and have the best year ever. Thanks again, everyone, and great selling.
Thank you for joining us for the Bill Levinson Experience. Please feel free to share this podcast with anyone you think would be interested. You may also visit LevinsonAssociates.com and all of Bill Levinson's social media pages for more information.